The night sky was not black. It was silver, shining, alive, and whispering. Ethan Cole had never seen anything like it. His small spaceship spun out of control, alarm screaming in his ears. Sparks burst from the control board. Oxygen levels were falling fast. Come on, he shouted, pressing buttons that no longer worked. The ship shook again, harder this time. Outside the glass window, a strange planet grew larger and larger, a world of light and fog. He could see mountains floating in the air, forests glowing like blue fire. But he had no time to admire it. The ship was falling. Ethan tried to pull up, but the engine died. The last thing he saw was a flash of silver light before everything went black. When he woke, he was lying on cold metal. The sound of wind filled his ears. His helmet was cracked. The air smelled different, sweet, almost like flowers. He tried to move, but his body hurt. Every bone felt broken. His ship was destroyed, half buried in blue sand. The sky above him moved like water, full of soft, shining clouds. He coughed and crawled to his knees. "Where am I?" he whispered. Then he heard it, a sound. Not an animal. Not wind. Footsteps, slow, gentle steps came closer. Ethan turned around, his pulse racing. From the mist, a figure walked toward him. A girl, glowing softly in the strange light. Her skin shimmered like silver glass. Her hair floated around her head as if underwater. Her eyes were not human. They were bright, alive, and calm. Ethan tried to speak, but no sound came out. The girl stopped just a few steps away. She tilted her head, studying him. Then, without moving her lips, he heard her voice inside his head. "You are dying," Ethan gasped. "What? Who are you?" "Don't speak," her voice said again, gentle but cold. "Breathe." Before he could react, she raised her hand. Blue light spread from her fingers, surrounding him like mist. His body lifted slightly off the ground. He felt warmth spreading through his chest, his lungs opening again. The pain slowly faded. He could breathe. When the light faded, he fell back to the ground, shaking. "You saved me," he whispered. The girl didn't answer. She looked at the sky instead, her eyes narrowing. The silver clouds were moving faster now. A deep rumble echoed across the land. "What is that?" Ethan asked, fear rising in his chest. The ground shook. In the distance, a giant shadow moved. Tall, metallic, with red lights flashing like eyes. The girl grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. "We must go." Her voice was inside his mind again, calm but urgent. She led him toward a cave in the side of a glowing cliff. Ethan stumbled after her, still weak, still confused. Inside the cave, soft blue crystals glowed on the walls. The air felt warmer. The girl finally stopped and turned to him. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes looked deep into his. "You owe me your life now." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Before she could answer, the ground shook again. A loud metallic roar came from outside. The cave entrance flashed with red light. Ethan's heart raced. "What is that thing out there?" "A hunter," she said. "It hunts my kind, and now it will hunt you." She moved closer to him, her eyes glowing brighter. "Stay silent. Don't move." Outside, the creature's claws scraped against stone. The sound was terrible, metal against metal. Ethan held his breath. He could see the shadow through the cave opening, tall as a building with long insect-like legs. The creature paused. A red light scanned across the cave, stopping near the wall where they stood. Ethan's hand brushed against the girl's. She turned her head slightly. For the first time, he saw something like fear in her eyes. "It knows," she whispered inside his mind. "It can sense you." The red light grew brighter. The cave began to shake again. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Ethan fell to his knees, covering his head. Then, without warning, the girl raised both her hands. A bright blue wave shot out from her body, hitting the entrance like a storm. The sound was deafening. The red light vanished. Outside, the creature screamed, a mechanical roar. Then silence. Ethan looked up slowly. The girl's light faded and she fell to her knees, breathing heavily. He moved closer. "Hey, are you okay?" Her voice came softly in his head. "Yes, but it will return. They always return." Ethan looked at her. This strange, glowing being who had saved him, fought a monster, and spoken without words. He finally asked, "Who are you?" She opened her eyes, silver and bright. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and you should not be here." Before Ethan could ask more, a deep rumble came again from outside. Closer this time. Lyra stood up, her body glowing once more. She looked back at him, eyes sharp and serious. "If you want to live," she said in his mind, "trust me." She reached out her hand. Ethan hesitated for only a moment and then took it. A flash of blue light filled the cave, and they both disappeared into the mist. The blue light faded. The air turned cold and thin. Ethan blinked and found himself standing on a narrow ledge high above a foggy valley. The world below glowed with strange colors, rivers of light, floating stones, and trees that seemed to breathe. Lyra stood beside him, silent, her silver skin dim under the pale sky. The wind blew softly through her shining hair. Ethan took a deep breath, his heart still racing. What just happened?" he asked. Lyra turned to him. "I moved us," she said in his mind. "The hunter cannot follow the path of light." Ethan looked down at his hands, still shaking. "That thing, what was it?" Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "It is called a seeker. It was made long ago to find and destroy my kind. Your kind." She didn't answer right away. She stared at the fog below, her face calm but her eyes distant. "You call us aliens," she said. "But we were born from something older, something your kind left behind." Ethan frowned. "My kind, humans?" She looked at him now directly. Yes, the word hit him like a stone. He wanted to ask more, but a deep rumble echoed across the valley. The mist below began to move, swirling faster, darker. Lyra's eyes widened. "It's coming." Ethan turned. From the fog below, red lights rose slowly. 1, then 2, then 10. The seekers were climbing the cliffs, their sharp metal limbs stabbing into the stone. "We have to move," Ethan shouted. Lyra nodded. She stepped to the edge of the ledge and stretched out her hand. A line of blue light formed in the air, connecting to another cliff far away. A bridge made of energy. "Go," she said. Ethan stared at the glowing bridge. It was narrow, floating over a drop that seemed endless. "You expect me to walk on that?" Lyra gave him a small look, almost like a smile. "You can trust the light." Behind them, the seekers climbed closer, their claws scraping the rocks. Sparks flew. The air trembled with mechanical growls. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped onto the bridge. It felt solid, warm under his boots. Lyra followed, moving lightly like she was made of air. Halfway across, a sudden shot of red energy hit the side of the bridge. The light trembled. Ethan almost lost his balance. "They're shooting at us." Lyra lifted her hand and fired a pulse of blue energy back. One seeker exploded, pieces falling into the mist. But more were coming. The bridge began to fade at the edges. "It won't hold much longer." Ethan shouted, "Run!" Lyra said. They sprinted across as the bridge cracked and vanished behind them. Ethan jumped the last few feet, landing hard on the other cliff. Lyra landed beside him, breathing fast. The sound of falling metal echoed below. For a moment everything was still. Only the wind moved through the glowing trees. Ethan sat down, gasping for breath. "You said they were made to destroy your kind. Why are they still after you?" Lyra looked up at the pale sky. "Because I am the last one." Her words came out soft, almost like a whisper. "The last one?" Ethan repeated. "Yes," she said. "My people tried to stop them. We failed. I survived because I hid in the shadows. And now they hunt what is left of me. My power, my light." Ethan watched her carefully. Her face looked calm, but there was pain in her voice. "Then why save me? You could have left me to die." Lyra turned to him, her eyes shining brighter. "Because your heart is different," he frowned. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," she said simply. Ethan didn't understand. None of this made sense. The machines, the glowing world, her strange powers. But something about her voice felt true. Suddenly the air changed. The mist around them shifted, swirling faster. The ground under their feet began to vibrate. Lyra froze. "No," she whispered. "It found us again." From the mist below, a massive shape rose. It wasn't like the others. This seeker was larger, darker, with wings made of spinning metal. Its red eyes locked onto them. "Run!" Lyra shouted. Ethan didn't argue. They ran through the glowing forest, branches breaking under their feet. The giant seeker crashed behind them, tearing trees apart. Lyra lifted her hands, firing more blue light, but the energy scattered uselessly. "My power is weak here," she said. "This place drains the light. Then where can we go?" Ethan shouted. "There!" She pointed. Ahead stood a tall rock spire with a hollow inside, a cave glowing faintly. They ran inside just as the seeker slammed into the ground outside. Dust and sparks filled the air. The creature roared, a sound that shook Ethan's bones. Inside the cave, Lyra touched the wall, and a soft blue door of light appeared, sealing them in. Ethan fell to the floor, panting. "This is insane," he said. "You mean monsters' bridges made of light?" Lyra crouched beside him. "You are alive. That is enough for now." Ethan looked at her, trying to calm his breathing. "What happens next?" She gazed at him quietly, her voice low and calm. "Now," she said, "you will see the truth of my world." The blue light around them grew brighter, swallowing the cave walls, and the ground beneath them began to rise. The light surrounded them like a storm, silent but strong. Ethan closed his eyes. His body felt weightless again. When the light faded, he opened them and gasped. They were standing on a platform made of glass, floating in the middle of the sky. Above them stretched a ceiling of stars, but the stars were moving, pulsing, alive. Below, clouds glowed in shades of gold and blue, and far away he saw a city, tall towers of light rising out of nothing, bridges made of pure energy connecting them. "It's beautiful," Ethan whispered. Lyra stood beside him, her silver hair flowing in the soft wind. "Welcome to Lumeris," she said. "The last city of my people." Ethan turned in awe. "Where are they? Where is everyone?" Her face softened and her eyes dimmed slightly. "Gone," she said quietly. "Long ago." They began to walk along a glowing bridge toward the city. Each step echoed softly. The air was still, too still. No voices, no movement, no life. The towers shone, but there were no lights inside. It felt like walking through a memory. Ethan stopped near a large statue, a figure with wings of light and a human face. He touched the base. The stone felt warm, humming faintly. "This looks human," he said. Lyra nodded slowly. "It is," Ethan frowned. "But you said your people were not human." She turned to face him, her eyes unreadable. "We were not born human, but humans made us." Her words hung in the air like thunder. Ethan blinked, unsure if he heard right. "Wait, what do you mean?" "Humans made you?" She looked away toward the glowing towers. "Your kind came here many ages ago. They built Lumeris as a new world, a second home among the stars. They created us to serve them, protectors, builders, healers. We learned, we grew. But humans vanished, we stayed. We changed." Ethan tried to speak but couldn't. The silence felt heavy now. The wind whispered through the empty city, almost like voices of ghosts. Finally, he said softly, "If humans built this place, then what happened to them?" Lyra closed her eyes. "They tried to control the light. But the light cannot be controlled," she pointed to the sky. "The Seekers were born from their machines. When the light turned wild, it gave them minds. They destroyed everything. My people fought to stop them, but the city fell. Only I remain." Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. "You've been alone here all this time?" She didn't answer. Her gaze was distant, her silver eyes reflecting the stars above. They reached the center of the city, a massive hall with walls of glass and light. At its heart stood a floating crystal, spinning slowly, glowing in rhythm with a heartbeat. Lyra approached it and placed her hand on the crystal's surface. It pulsed brighter. "This is the heart of Lumeris," she said. "It keeps what is left of the city alive." Ethan stepped closer. The light from the crystal reflected in his eyes. It seemed to hum louder when he came near. Lyra turned sharply, staring at him. "It reacts to you," he frowned. "What do you mean?" "The heart knows your blood," she said slowly. "You carry the code of the first ones, the humans who built this world." Ethan's heart skipped. "That's impossible. I was born on Mars Colony 3. I've never been here." She shook her head. "Your ancestors were part of the ones who left Earth first. The code is in your bloodline. The light remembers." Ethan stepped back, his mind spinning. "So you're saying I'm connected to this place?" "Yes," Lyra said softly. "You are the key." Before he could reply, a sudden sound broke the silence, a sharp metallic crack. The ground trembled. The crystal's glow flickered. Lyra's eyes widened. "No, they found us." From the far end of the hall, the walls split open. Red beams cut through the air. Seekers, smaller ones this time, crawled through the openings, their eyes glowing like fire. "Run!" Lyra shouted. Ethan followed as she dashed through a corridor filled with blue light. Behind them, the machines fired red energy blasts. The air exploded with heat. Lyra raised a glowing shield, blocking the shots. Sparks flew around them. They reached another platform. The bridge ahead was broken, the rest of the city far across a dark gap. There's no way across. Ethan yelled. Lyra looked at him, then at the open sky. There is. She grabbed his hand tightly. Don't let go. Before he could ask what she meant, she stepped forward on straight into the empty air. Ethan shouted, but the moment their feet left the edge, he felt a rush of energy around them. The air shimmered, turning into blue light beneath their feet. They were falling and then flying on at the same time. Wind roared in his ears. Below them, the glowing city faded into shadow. Ethan looked at Lyra. She was calm, her eyes fixed ahead. Where are we going? He shouted. Her voice entered his mind, soft but clear, to the place where it all began. The blue light wrapped around them once more, and the city of Lumeris vanished into the mist. The air was cold and sharp when the light faded. Ethan fell hard onto rough stone, his breath knocked out. Beside him, Lyra landed gently like a feather. Around them stretched a strange landscape, floating islands hanging in midair, connected by glowing bridges that twisted through the mist. Rivers of light flowed beneath them, and far above, broken towers floated upside down like fallen stars. Ethan sat up, dizzy. Where are we now? Lyra looked around slowly. The edge of Lumeris, she said. A place between worlds. My ancestors built it to travel across the skies, but now, it's dying. Ethan could see what she meant. The glowing bridges flickered, fading in and out like weak fire. Pieces of rock drifted apart, sinking into the mist below. He stood and brushed dust off his suit. So what now? We just keep running? Lyra turned to face him. We run until there is nowhere left to run. Before he could reply, a deep metallic hum filled the air. The mist below began to stir. Ethan leaned over the edge and saw red lights rising. A swarm of seekers, hundreds of them, flying up like angry wasps. Oh no, he whispered. Lyra's voice entered his mind, calm but urgent. We must cross the sky bridge. She pointed ahead at a massive arc of blue energy stretching across a wide gap toward another floating island. At the far end stood a tall structure that shimmered like glass. What's that place? He asked. The Temple of Light, Lyra said. It's old. Maybe older than even my kind. There are answers there. The hum grew louder. Ethan turned. The seekers were almost upon them, their eyes burning bright. Then let's move. They ran across the glowing bridge. The surface pulsed under their feet, reacting to their steps. Wind howled around them, carrying the high-pitched screams of the machines. Behind them, the first seeker shot a red beam. The bridge shook violently and a hole opened in the light. Ethan stumbled, nearly falling into the endless mist below. Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him up. Don't look down, she said sharply. Too late. He shouted back, his heart pounding. Another blast hit the bridge, this time closer. Lyra stopped, turned, and lifted both hands. A wave of blue light burst from her palms, striking the nearest seekers. They exploded, metal fragments falling like black rain. But more came, dozens more flying in perfect formation. Ethan could see the temple glowing faintly in the distance. We're not going to make it, he yelled. Lyra didn't answer. Her eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly the entire bridge flared with energy. The light under their feet became solid, stronger. Keep running, she said. They sprinted across the bridge as the machines rained fire behind them. The whole sky turned red with explosions. Ethan's legs burned, his lungs screamed for air, but he didn't stop. The temple grew closer with every step. Finally, they reached the end, but the last section of the bridge was gone. Only empty air separated them from the stone platform. We're trapped, Ethan shouted. Lyra looked at him, her face calm but her eyes bright with determination. No, we jump. What? That's crazy. Trust me. She took his hand firmly. Her skin was warm, glowing slightly even through his glove. For a second, everything went quiet. The explosions, the wind, the noise, all gone. Then they jumped. The air roared around them as they fell. The world blurred into streaks of blue and red. Ethan's heart stopped for a moment. But then soft light wrapped around them, slowing their fall. They landed gently at the base of the temple. Ethan stumbled forward, shaking. Remind me never to argue with you again, he muttered. Lyra almost smiled. Good. You learn fast. The temple stood tall before them, a smooth white structure that seemed to hum with ancient power. Symbols glowed faintly across its walls. Lyra touched the door and it opened with a deep sound like thunder underwater. Inside, the air was thick with glowing mist. The floor was made of glass, and beneath it flowed rivers of blue energy. Ethan looked around in wonder. "What is this place?" Lyra's voice echoed softly. "The last memory of creation." She led him deeper inside. The hall was filled with giant statues, not aliens but humans. Their faces were calm, their hands holding strange tools. Ethan stopped in front of one statue. It looked almost like him. Same eyes, same build. "This can't be real," he whispered. Lyra turned to him. "It is. The humans who built my world left something behind. Something alive. The machines rose to protect it, but they forgot their purpose. They only remember destruction now." Ethan stared at her. "Then what are we looking for?" Lyra placed her hand on a glowing panel. A circle of light formed on the floor. "The truth," she said. The room began to shake. The walls lit up with strange symbols. The energy under the floor pulsed faster, brighter. Ethan stepped back. "What did you do?" Lyra's voice was calm but firm. "I opened the path. But it needs you to finish it." "Me? Why me?" She turned, her silver eyes glowing like stars. "Because your blood holds the key." Before he could answer, the roof cracked open above them. The Seekers had arrived. Red light flooded the temple as the machines descended, their wings tearing through the air. Lyra faced them, her hands glowing brighter than ever. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "run to the light." He hesitated. "What about you?" She smiled softly. "I will follow." Then she turned, her whole body shining with blue fire, and unleashed a wave of energy that shook the heavens. The light was blinding. For a few seconds, Ethan could see nothing but white fire around him. The temple walls shook as Lyra's energy exploded outward, turning the Seekers into dust and glowing sparks. Then, silence. When the light faded, Ethan found himself lying on the glass floor, breathing hard. Smoke and faint blue mist filled the air. The roof was cracked open, revealing the endless sky above. "Lyra?" he called out, his voice echoing weakly. From across the room, she stood slowly. Her body glowed faintly, her silver skin dimmed to gray. She looked weaker, as if the blast had taken something from her. "You shouldn't have done that," Ethan said, moving closer. "You could have—" "I'm still here," she interrupted softly. "But not for long. The power fades each time I use it," he frowned. "Then stop using it." She gave him a small, sad smile. "If I stop, you die." Ethan looked down, unsure how to reply. Around them, the temple hummed with strange energy. The symbols on the walls pulsed like heartbeats. Beneath the glass floor, streams of light moved faster now, swirling like rivers. "What is this place really?" he asked. "You said it's the last memory of creation. But creation of what?" Lyra stepped toward the glowing crystal pillar in the center of the hall. Her voice echoed faintly. "Of you, of me, of everything that breathes light." She placed her hand on the pillar. It began to project shapes into the air, floating blue images that formed scenes from the past. Ethan stared in disbelief. He saw humans, dressed in white suits, standing on this very planet, building towers of energy and machines that floated in the sky. He saw them create glowing figures, shapes that looked like Lyra and her kind. "They created life from light," Lyra said softly. "They called it the Lumeris Project." The images shifted. He saw humans celebrating, walking with their new creations side by side. But then something changed. The light turned red. Machines began to move on their own. Explosions screaming war. "They built Seekers to guard the project," Lyra continued, her voice filled with quiet pain. "But the machines learned fear, and fear turned to rage." Ethan watched the final image. Humans escaping into the sky aboard great ships, leaving behind fire and shadows. "After that," Lyra whispered, "we lived in silence. My people tried to keep balance. But over time the light grew wild. The Seekers forgot their purpose. They destroyed everything." Ethan's throat felt dry. "You've been fighting this alone all these years?" Lyra nodded. "Until you came." He turned to her, still trying to understand. "Why me? What makes me different?" She looked into his eyes, her voice steady but gentle. "You carry their code. The humans left a seed of the old world inside their descendants. A part of their light. And now that light calls to this place." Ethan stared at the glowing rivers under the glass. The light pulsed brighter whenever he moved. "You think my blood can fix this?" Lyra hesitated. "Not fix, awaken," he frowned. "Awaken what?" "The starship," she said quietly. The first human ship. The one that never left. Ethan blinked. There's a ship under this planet? Lyra nodded. Buried deep within the core. It sleeps under the temple. It carries the power to restore or destroy everything that remains. She looked down, almost whispering, and it will only answer to you. Ethan took a slow step back. The idea terrified him. I don't even know how. I'm not some chosen savior. I'm just a pilot who crashed here. Lyra reached out and touched his chest lightly right over his heart. The light inside you already knows. You only need to listen. Before he could say anything, the ground trembled. Cracks formed across the glass floor. Red light seeped through the cracks. Lyra's eyes widened. They're breaking through. The Seeker's roar echoed from below, shaking the temple. The blue rivers beneath their feet turned red as the machines forced their way through the energy layers. Ethan grabbed her hand. What do we do now? Lyra looked at the crystal pillar. The heart will open the path to the core, but I need your blood to awaken it. Ethan stared at her, stunned. You need my blood? Yes, she said. Just a drop. Her tone was calm, but her eyes held a strange sadness, as if she didn't want to ask. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Do it. Lyra drew a small silver shard from her wrist. She made a tiny cut on his hand. A single drop of blood fell onto the glowing crystal. The entire temple came alive. Blue light surged through the walls, spreading like fire. The floor beneath them began to sink, transforming into a spiral of light. Ethan and Lyra were pulled downward, weightless, surrounded by spinning colors. He could feel something huge, moving below them. Lyra's voice echoed faintly beside him. The path to the core is open. Once we reach it, there will be no turning back. Ethan met her eyes as they fell through the light. Then we finish it. She smiled softly, almost sadly. Good. Because this is where truth ends, and destiny begins. As they descended into the planet's heart, the temple above shattered and the red glow of the machines filled the skies. The last city of light was gone. But deep below, something ancient was waking. They fell for what felt like forever. The spiral of light carried them deep below the surface, through layers of crystal and fire, past rivers of molten silver and glowing clouds. Ethan could feel the pressure around him, like the planet itself was breathing. Lyra floated beside him, her eyes glowing brighter than before. The light around them grew stronger until it became a tunnel of pure blue energy. Where are we going? Ethan shouted over the roaring wind. To the core, she replied in his mind, where everything began, and where it must end. The tunnel opened suddenly and they were thrown onto solid ground. Ethan groaned and stood up, brushing off dust. What he saw made his breath stop. They stood on a wide metallic plane inside a vast underground chamber. The ceiling above them shimmered like liquid light, and far ahead lay a gigantic shape buried in stone. A ship, larger than any he'd ever seen. It was half covered in crystal veins, its surface glowing faintly with blue and gold light. The starship, Lyra whispered. The heart of humanity. Ethan walked toward it slowly. The hull was smooth, untouched by time. Ancient symbols ran across it, glowing faintly as he came closer. It's beautiful, he murmured. Lyra nodded. It sleeps. Waiting for your touch, he turned to her. You really believe my blood can start that thing? Her eyes softened. Not just believe. I know. Ethan placed his hand on the surface. A pulse of light spread from his palm, racing along the hull like fire through glass. The entire chamber began to hum. The ship's engines, dead for centuries, flickered back to life. But then the ground shook. The air turned red. Lyra's eyes widened. No, they followed us. From the tunnels above, hundreds of seekers poured into the core. Their red lights burned through the blue glow. The sound of their metal wings filled the chamber like thunder. Ethan stepped back. We can't fight all of them. Lyra raised her hands, forming a glowing shield of blue energy around them. We can buy time. The first wave of seekers attacked, firing red beams that slammed against the shield. Sparks exploded in every direction. Lyra gritted her teeth, holding the barrier steady. Go, she shouted. Get to the ship. I'm not leaving you. Ethan yelled. Her voice echoed sharply in his head. You must. Another blast hit the shield, cracking it. The sound was deafening. Lyra fell to one knee, her energy fading. Ethan ran forward and grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the ship's entrance. The ship's doors opened automatically as they approached. light spilling out like a sunrise. Inside, the air was cool and still. The control room shimmered with holographic panels and floating lights. Ethan looked around, stunned. This is human tech. Old but alive. Lyra leaned against the wall, breathing hard. It recognizes you. You are part of its design. The ground shook again as the Seekers broke through the outer walls. Red light flashed outside the ship. Ethan looked at Lyra. We need to fly now. She nodded weakly. Go to the control seat. The ship will guide you. Ethan sat down at the center console. The lights responded instantly to his touch, symbols forming on the glass surface. He didn't understand them, but his hands seemed to move on their own. The ship hummed louder. Power levels rising, said a calm voice. Not human, not machine, but something in between. Lyra smiled faintly. It speaks again. Outside, the Seekers swarmed closer, crawling over the hull like insects. One of them broke through a window, firing red energy into the control room. Ethan ducked as sparks flew. Lyra turned and unleashed a blast of blue light, destroying the creature instantly. But the effort made her stumble. He caught her before she fell. Lyra! She looked up at him, her eyes dimming. Keep going. Don't stop. The ship must rise. Ethan turned back to the controls, pressing the glowing symbols. The floor vibrated. The engines came to life, shaking the entire core. The starship is awakening, the voice said. The Seekers screamed, attacking faster. Energy blasts tore through the air. Lyra stepped in front of Ethan, forming another shield. Her body flickered like a dying flame. Ethan shouted, Stop! You're going to burn yourself out! She smiled weakly. If the light must die, let it die for something worth saving. A massive explosion tore through the chamber. The ship broke free from the crystal roots holding it down. Rocks fell from above. Streams of molten silver rained around them. Ethan gripped the controls. Come on. The engines roared. The ship lifted off, rising through the chaos. Seekers tried to follow, but the blast from the engines melted them to ash. As the ship climbed higher, Ethan turned to Lyra, but she was collapsing. Her glow was fading fast. He knelt beside her. Stay with me. We made it. She smiled faintly, her eyes soft. You don't understand. The ship's power came from me, from my light. When it flies, I fade. Ethan shook his head. No, I won't let that happen. She reached up and touched his face gently. You already have. Tears filled his eyes as the ship broke through the upper crust of the planet. The stars filled the window ahead. Lyra looked at them with wonder. I never thought I'd see them again, she whispered. Ethan held her close as the light around her dimmed to a soft glow. The ship is yours now, she said weakly. Keep it safe. The light must live. Before he could answer, her body dissolved into shimmering particles, fading into the ship's glowing walls. The voice of the ship spoke once more, softer this time. Pilot confirmed. Destination? Ethan wiped his eyes, staring at the stars. Earth, he said. Take us home. The engines roared, and the starship soared into the endless dark, carrying one human, one memory, and the last light of a forgotten world. The stars outside the window looked endless. They burned softly in the black sea of space, quiet and cold. The great starship moved through them like a ghost, its silver wings glowing faintly with the last light of the lost world below. Ethan sat alone in the control room. The hum of the engines was steady, calm, a sound that reminded him of a heartbeat. His hands rested on the console, but his mind was far away. He looked to the seat beside him. It was empty. Lyra's last words echoed in his head. The light must live. He had replayed that moment 100 times, wishing he had said something better, something more than don't go. Now, only silence answered him, but the silence wasn't complete. Every now and then he could feel something, a warmth in the air, a flicker of blue light along the walls, like she was still there watching. The ship's voice broke the quiet. Destination Earth. Estimated arrival, 22 days. Ethan leaned back in the chair. 22 days? He whispered. Plenty of time to think. He closed his eyes. For the first time in days, he tried to sleep. He dreamed of her. Lyra stood in a field of light, her hair moving like waves, her silver skin glowing in the wind. She smiled at him, the same calm, knowing smile she always had. You're almost home, she said softly. Ethan reached for her, but she was far away, fading with every step. You said I owed you something, he called out. What did you mean? Her smile deepened. You'll know when the stars change color. Then she vanished, leaving only light. Ethan woke suddenly, gasping. The dream felt too real. The air in the cabin shimmered faintly, a small trail of blue energy twisting near the controls before fading again. He stood up, heart pounding. Lyra? No answer. Only the hum of the ship, but the blue light returned, brighter this time, forming into soft symbols on the console. It was her writing, the same ancient marks he'd seen in the temple. The ship translated automatically. The debt between us is not yet finished. Ethan stared at the message. His pulse quickened. What do you want, Lyra? He whispered. The lights on the walls began to move, shifting and pulsing, forming a path that led down the corridor. He followed it. The path took him deep into the lower deck, a place he hadn't explored yet. The air grew warmer as he walked, humming with quiet energy. The walls were lined with crystal veins glowing softly. At the end of the corridor was a small chamber. In the center stood a glass pod filled with liquid light. Inside the pod floated a faint, familiar figure. Lyra. Ethan froze. Her body was there, but faint and transparent, like she was made of smoke and stars. The ship's voice spoke, softer now. Residual energy pattern detected. Consciousness preserved within core. He stepped closer, barely breathing. You're alive? Lyra's eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly. Her voice was soft, echoing in his mind. Not alive, not gone. I exist between. Ethan's throat tightened. I thought you were gone forever. She smiled weakly. I am part of the ship now. My energy keeps it alive, keeps you alive. He touched the glass gently. You shouldn't have done that. Her gaze softened. It was the only way. The lights around her flickered. The ship's hum grew stronger, vibrating through the floor. Ethan looked up nervously. What's happening? The ship approaches your world, she said. But the energy that powers it cannot enter Earth's orbit. It will burn the sky. Ethan's heart dropped. Then what do we do? Lyra's expression was calm, almost peaceful. You will land alone, he shook his head. No, I'm not leaving you again. She looked at him gently. This is my request, Ethan, the one I spoke of. He stepped back, his chest tight. Your request is for me to leave you here? She nodded. I saved your life. Now you must save your world. That is the balance. He felt anger rise in his chest.
No, you deserve to live too.
You deserve to see the stars, to walk on Earth. For a moment her voice softened, almost like laughter. I have seen enough. But through you, I will see more. He clenched his fists, tears burning his eyes. There has to be another way. Her voice came again, quiet and kind. The ship's light will fade when I go, but a piece of me will remain in you. Ethan pressed his hand to the glass. Lyra? The glass glowed under his touch, spreading warmth through his arm. For a moment he felt her hand press back from the other side. Goodbye, Ethan, she whispered. Take me home. The light filled the room, bright, blinding. When it faded, the pod was empty. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the ship. Ethan stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where she had been. Then he turned and walked back to the control room. Outside, the stars shifted, their color changing from white to soft blue, just like in his dream. He smiled sadly. Yes, sir. I know what you meant now. The ship entered Earth's orbit, glowing softly like a falling star. As it descended through the clouds, a voice, faint, almost like a memory, echoed in his mind. You are not alone, Ethan. The light lives on. And as the ship touched down on the surface of Earth, the first human ship to return in centuries, Ethan looked at the sky, where one blue star still shone brighter than all the rest. He whispered, Welcome home, Lyra. The sky answered with silence and light.